Sometimes injustice doesn't arrive with shouting or violence. Sometimes it comes wrapped in politeness. A smile that hides contempt, a system that turns its head away, and silence that hurts more than words. What happened at Gate 27 of Atlanta International Airport started as a minor inconvenience. But within hours, it would spiral into a corporate storm that exposed everything, from prejudice in plain sight to the price of accountability, and the quiet, difficult power of forgiveness. The morning light spilled through the vast glass walls of Atlanta International Airport, glinting off polished floors and glimmering across the faces of travelers rushing to somewhere else. Phones buzzed, suitcases rolled, the smell of coffee mingled with jet fuel and anxiety. It was another ordinary day of departures and arrivals, or so it seemed. Among the waves of people stood Vanessa Cole, a tall, confident black businesswoman in her late 30s. Every detail about her radiated quiet authority. Her tailored gray suit, her silver watch, her calm posture. She wasn't just another traveler. She was the CEO of Cole Dynamics, one of the fastest-growing logistics firms in the country. She was flying to New York that morning to finalize a billion-dollar merger, one that would cement her company as an industry leader. But destiny, and something darker, had other plans. When Vanessa reached the gate counter for Flight 276, the attendant, Madison Pierce, a young woman with a polished corporate smile, barely glanced up. Her tone was courteous but cold, mechanical. Morning, name? Vanessa Cole, first class, seat 2A. Madison's fingers danced across her keyboard, but her expression changed. Her lips tightened slightly. That's strange, she murmured. Looks like your seat's been reassigned. To what? Vanessa asked, still calm. Madison hesitated just long enough for it to sting. Seat 44C, economy. There was no apology, no explanation, just the practiced tone of indifference. The line behind Vanessa shifted, passengers growing impatient. A few people muttered. A man sighed loudly. Vanessa frowned slightly. That must be an error. I confirmed my booking yesterday through corporate priority. Madison tilted her head. Maybe your company didn't process the upgrade. Happens sometimes. Her words were coated with casual disrespect. And though Vanessa's face remained calm, a quiet spark flickered behind her eyes. She had faced worse. Glass ceilings, corporate whispers, condescension from board members twice her age. But this was different. It was smaller, pettier, and somehow more personal. I'd appreciate it if you checked with a supervisor, Vanessa said, her tone professional but firm. Madison's smile stiffened. Ma'am, I am the supervisor here. A lie. And both of them knew it. Vanessa glanced to the side where a younger staff member, Eli Turner, maybe in his 20s, avoided her gaze. He looked uneasy, his hand twitching near the radio clipped to his belt. He wanted to speak. She could see it, but fear anchored him in place. Moments later, Madison leaned closer to her screen and said, You'll have to take it or wait for the next flight. It's policy, passengers behind Vanessa exhaled impatiently. Some stared at her with detached curiosity. Others turned away. It was easier not to see. Vanessa inhaled slowly. She'd learned long ago that silence, when chosen, could be more powerful than confrontation. She stepped aside, phone in hand, her reflection caught in the terminal glass. Behind her, Madison continued checking in other passengers, her tone bright and false. But something had shifted. Injustice. Even when quiet leaves ripples. Hours later, as Vanessa sat near gate 27 waiting to board the downgraded seat she hadn't agreed to, she watched the same patterns repeat. A young man in a business suit joked with Madison, and within minutes, she found him an upgrade. The same seat Vanessa had paid for. Her hands tightened on her phone. She didn't react. Not yet. Back in her office tower in Manhattan, her assistant, Carla, had already seen the live booking change flagged by the corporate travel system. Carla's message appeared on Vanessa's screen. Do you want me to escalate? Vanessa typed a single reply. Not yet. Let's watch how far this goes. Because Vanessa had learned something most people never do, that the truth, when it reveals itself, does so quietly at first, and then all at once. As the boarding announcement echoed, Vanessa gathered her bag and moved toward the line. Her posture was elegant, composed, but her silence was no longer submission. It was calculation. Inside, she felt something shifting. Not just anger, but resolve. This wasn't about a seat anymore. It was about the invisible weight carried by every person who had ever been dismissed, diminished, or told to let it go. She stepped onto the plane and made her way down the narrow aisle toward economy. The looks she received from fellow passengers were mixed, some sympathetic, most indifferent. The man now seated in her original first-class spot smiled at her awkwardly, pretending not to notice the irony. She sat, fastened her seatbelt, and stared out the window. The engines roared to life, but the storm she was preparing would make far more noise. Before we go deeper, if stories about truth, power, and justice matter to you, make sure you're subscribed. Because what happens next at Gate 27 will remind you why silence is never neutral, and why forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. When the flight landed in New York, Vanessa didn't complain to customer service. She didn't tweet or post or shout. She went straight to her office, opened her laptop, and started documenting every detail, every timestamp, every exchange, because accountability, she believed, was a process, not a reaction. Within 2 days, her assistant traced internal records showing that Madison had manually switched Vanessa's seat and reassigned it to another passenger, a man connected to a regional executive in the airline. What had begun as bias had now become corruption. Vanessa had leverage, and she knew how to use it, but what she did next would surprise everyone, including herself. The city lights of New York stretched beneath the night sky like veins of gold. From her office on the 52nd floor of the Cole Dynamics headquarters, Vanessa Cole stood by the glass wall, her reflection merging with the skyline. The hum of the city below matched the rhythm of her thoughts. It had been 3 days since the incident at Atlanta International, and what began as an insult had become something much deeper, a mirror reflecting a system she'd fought her entire career to overcome. Her assistant, Carla Myers, stood beside her, holding a tablet. "We confirmed everything," Carla said. "Madison Pierce, gate agent at Atlanta. She manually reassigned your seat. The system shows she transferred it to a passenger named Robert Henson. He's a regional operations manager for Skylink Airlines." Vanessa didn't move. Her tone was measured. "Did she get authorization?" Carla shook her head. "No, ma'am. It was a personal override. She used her supervisor credentials." Vanessa turned from the window and walked toward her desk, every movement deliberate. "Send me the passenger manifest, the time-stamped logs, and a copy of the incident camera footage from Gate 27. Carla hesitated. "We'll have to go through legal channels for that." Vanessa smiled slightly, a quiet, almost dangerous calm in her expression. "Then use them. Tell legal we're conducting a background compliance audit. I want it on my desk by morning." It wasn't revenge that moved her, it was principle. She'd built her company on discipline, transparency, and fairness. She couldn't let this go, not just because it happened to her, but because silence would make her complicit in the very culture she spent years dismantling. She opened her laptop, typing in a new file name, Gate 27 Accountability Report. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, Madison Pierce sat in her small apartment, staring at her phone. The incident had been replaying in her mind ever since Vanessa left the airport. She'd tried to convince herself it was nothing, just a misunderstanding, another busy day at work. But deep down, guilt had already started to eat at her. That guilt, however, wasn't strong enough to stop her from lying in the internal report. She wrote that Vanessa had arrived late, that seat reassignment was due to scheduling logistics, and that no discrimination occurred. It was neat, professional, and completely false. But the lie didn't stay buried for long. 2 days later, an internal memo from Skylink's corporate office arrived at Vanessa's desk. The CEO, Richard Caldwell, a man with a reputation for charm and cold efficiency, requested a private meeting. The next morning, Vanessa arrived at the airline's Manhattan headquarters. The receptionist led her to a sleek conference room overlooking the East River. Inside, Richard sat with 2 other executives and a company lawyer. He stood when she entered. "Ms. Cole, thank you for meeting with us. I understand there was an incident." Vanessa took a seat, folding her hands calmly on the table. "Incident is one word for it." Richard gave a tight smile. "We've reviewed the report from our staff. It appears to have been an unfortunate mix-up, but we're prepared to offer an apology and—" She cut him off, her voice sharp but composed. "Don't insult me with PR rehearsals, Richard. You know exactly what happened." The room fell silent. The executives shifted uncomfortably. Richard leaned back, the smile fading. Vanessa continued. One of your employees deliberately reassigned a confirmed first-class seat to a personal acquaintance. She fabricated a report to cover it up. And when I questioned her, she lied. To my face in front of passengers. The lawyer opened a folder. Ms. Cole, we can assure you that if any misconduct occurred, the airline will take appropriate internal action. Vanessa leaned forward slightly. No, that's not enough. Because this isn't just about me. It's about your culture. About the quiet permission you give people like her to act this way. Her words hung in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. Then softly she added, I don't want an apology. I want accountability. That night, after returning to her office, Vanessa received an email, anonymous. The subject line read, You're right about her. Inside was a single attachment, a short clip of security footage from Gate 27. It showed Madison laughing with Robert Henson moments before Vanessa approached the counter. The video then captured Madison manually reassigning the seat, followed by her dismissive response when Vanessa questioned her. The evidence was clear, undeniable. Vanessa sat back in her chair watching the clip in silence. Her face showed no satisfaction, only sadness, the kind that comes from realizing how far people will go to protect comfort at the expense of integrity. She called Carla into her office. Draft a statement, she said. We're going public. Carla's eyes widened. Public? Are you sure? Vanessa nodded slowly. If they want to teach silence, I'll teach truth. Within 24 hours, major business outlets were reporting on the story. Headlines read, CEO denied first-class seat sparks corporate ethics scandal. Cole Dynamics, Vanessa Cole demands airline accountability. The news spread quickly. Online discussions exploded. Some accused her of overreacting. Others praised her for standing up against systemic injustice. The airline scrambled to control the narrative, issuing a carefully worded statement. We are conducting a full investigation and reaffirm our commitment to equality, fairness, and inclusion. But Vanessa's quiet persistence had already done its work. The investigation revealed not just Madison's misconduct, but a pattern, a network of seat swaps and priority favors that had been benefiting certain passengers for years. Madison was suspended pending review. Robert Henson resigned, but the storm didn't stop there. The airline's board called for a full audit of operations, one that uncovered dozens of similar incidents across different terminals. What began as one woman's quiet stand had turned into a corporate reckoning. But while the world debated policies and public relations, Vanessa was dealing with something more personal, because deep down, she knew the system wasn't the only thing broken, people were. If you're still here watching this unfold, take a second to think about it. How often do we stay silent? Not because we agree, but because it's easier. If stories like this make you reflect, hit that like button, not for the algorithm, but because awareness starts small, just like this. A week later, Vanessa received a call. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice on the other end was trembling. Ms. Cole. This is Madison Pierce. Vanessa didn't respond immediately. She let the silence sit. Madison's voice cracked. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was wrong. I lied to protect myself. I've lost my job. I don't know how to fix it. Vanessa closed her eyes for a long moment. She could hear the desperation in the woman's voice, the same person who had once smirked behind a desk. But now the arrogance was gone. All that remained was fear. Madison, Vanessa said quietly, you can't fix what you deny. You took something from me that day, but not a seat. Respect. And the truth is, you didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected yourself, Madison sobbed softly. I know. I just wish I could take it back. There was another silence, long, heavy, but not cold. Then Vanessa spoke again. You can't take it back, she said softly. But you can start again. And when you do, don't ever let fear make you cruel. That night, Vanessa sat once more by her office window. The city lights shimmered below, indifferent and eternal. She thought about forgiveness, not as absolution, but as release. Accountability had done its work. Now it was time to let go. She opened her laptop and typed the final line in her report. Justice is not vengeance. It's balance. And with that, she closed the file. The next morning, news outlets reported that Vanessa had declined to pursue further legal action. Instead, she proposed a partnership between coal, Dynamics, and the airline to fund ethics in leadership programs for young professionals, entering corporate service industries. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant transforming pain into purpose. Sometimes the loudest battles are fought in silence. Sometimes the strongest act isn't revenge, it's restraint. If Vanessa's story moved you, remember this. Forgiveness doesn't erase accountability. It completes it. Subscribe for more stories that remind us that truth, no matter how quiet, always finds its way to the surface. Weeks had passed since the headlines had cooled, but the echoes of the Atlanta airport incident still rippled quietly through corporate circles. Vanessa Cole had returned to her work, but something within her had changed. The fire that once drove her to outwork, outperform, and outlast everyone else had softened. Not diminished, but transformed. It wasn't about power anymore. It was about purpose. From the outside, Cole Dynamics appeared stronger than ever. Profits were steady, media coverage had shifted from controversy to admiration, and Vanessa's decision to forgive rather than sue had made her a national symbol of composure and moral clarity. But inside, she was learning that healing wasn't as easy as headlines made it sound. She still thought about Madison, not with anger, but with curiosity. What happens to someone after a public fall? Did she find her way back? Was she still trapped in guilt, or had she started to rebuild? The questions lingered, soft but persistent. One afternoon, while reviewing a new mentorship initiative with her team, her assistant Carla entered her office holding a folder. "You might want to see this," she said quietly. Vanessa looked up, curious. Carla handed her a resume. The name at the top stopped her cold, Madison Pierce. Vanessa's brows knit together. Carla hesitated before speaking. She applied for the Ethics in Leadership training program we launched with the airline. For a moment, Vanessa said nothing. She just stared at the name, the paper trembling slightly between her fingers. "Did she know this would cross my desk?" "I don't think so," Carla said. "The applications are reviewed anonymously at first. Hers came up in the final round. She scored high." "Really high?" Vanessa leaned back in her chair, staring out at the skyline. The irony wasn't lost on her. The woman who once stripped her of dignity now wanted to join a program built on restoring it. She exhaled slowly. "Set up a meeting," she said softly. 3 days later, Madison walked into the Cole Dynamics headquarters. Her hair was shorter now, her posture humbler. The confidence that once bordered on arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet, almost fragile sincerity. Vanessa waited for her in a small conference room. No entourage, no cameras, no lawyers, just two people and the truth that bound them. Madison entered hesitantly. "Ms. Cole," she began, her voice soft. "Thank you for seeing me." Vanessa gestured to the seat across from her. "Sit." There was a long silence after Madison sat down. The hum of the city outside filled the space between them. Finally, Vanessa spoke. "Why did you apply?" Madison looked down, folding her hands in her lap. "Because I need to learn how to be the kind of person I wasn't that day. I was afraid of losing control, of looking weak, of being replaced. I thought if I could make someone else smaller, I'd feel bigger." Vanessa's eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. "And did it work?" Madison shook her head. "It destroyed me. I lost everything that mattered. My job, my credibility, my peace. But I realized the thing I took from you that day wasn't a seat. It was the chance to prove to myself that I could do better. I want to earn that chance now." For a moment, Vanessa said nothing. The air between them held years of unspoken lessons: power, pride, prejudice, and the cost of silence. Finally, Vanessa leaned forward. "You understand that this program isn't about redemption for your image. It's about change. Accountability doesn't end when people stop watching." Madison nodded quickly. "I understand." Vanessa studied her a long moment before finally saying, "Then I'll approve your application." Madison's eyes widened. "You will?" "Yes," Vanessa said simply. "But not because you deserve it. Because you're willing to face it." Tears welled in Madison's eyes, but she nodded. "Thank you." Vanessa stood and extended her hand. Madison hesitated, then took it. The handshake was brief, but in that moment, the air shifted. The storm that began at Gate 27 had finally found its calm. Over the following months, Vanessa kept her distance but watched from afar. Madison threw herself into the Ethics in Leadership program, showing up early, staying late, asking hard questions. and confronting the biases she'd once hidden behind professionalism. Her transformation didn't come quickly or cleanly. There were setbacks, relapses, and moments of crushing shame. But every time she faltered, she remembered Vanessa's words. You can't fix what you deny. By the end of the program, Madison stood before a panel to present her capstone project, a proposal to retrain airline staff in empathy-based leadership and bias recognition. Her voice trembled at first, but as she spoke, strength returned. She wasn't speaking as a victim or an employee trying to win her job back. She was speaking as a person who had finally met her reflection and refused to look away. Vanessa attended quietly, seated in the back row. When Madison finished, the room erupted in applause. Their eyes met briefly, and Vanessa gave a single approving nod. No words were needed. Forgiveness had done its work. Months later, the ethics program became a national model, adopted by other airlines and corporate entities. News outlets called it a movement born from humility. Coal Dynamics and Skylink Airlines co-funded scholarships for young professionals, emphasizing not just business skill, but moral awareness. In one of the program's opening ceremonies, Vanessa took the stage to deliver a keynote address. Her words carried the calm authority of someone who had seen the worst of people and still believed in their best. Accountability is not punishment, she said. It's the mirror that shows us who we are and who we can become. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's the bridge that lets us cross that distance. The audience rose in applause. But Vanessa's eyes drifted to the back of the hall, where Madison stood among the new trainees, no longer a symbol of shame, but of change. For the first time since that day at the airport, Vanessa smiled, not the professional smile of a CEO, but the peaceful smile of a woman who had found her own redemption through another's. As the months turned into a year, the story of Gate 27 faded from the headlines, but not from memory. Vanessa often traveled through Atlanta again, sometimes even pausing at that very gate. The hum of luggage wheels, the echo of announcements. It all felt familiar but lighter now, as if the air itself had learned something. Once, as she sat waiting for her flight, a young flight attendant approached her nervously. "Ms. Cole?" she asked. "I just wanted to say thank you. I was part of that ethics training. It changed the way I see people. It changed the way I see myself." Vanessa smiled warmly. "That's all the thanks I need," she said. As the plane began boarding, Vanessa gathered her things and walked toward the jet bridge. The same walkway that once carried humiliation now carried grace. The storm that had begun with a smirk and a seat change had ended with understanding. Not because systems changed overnight, but because one person had refused to stay silent and another had chosen to change. Sometimes the smallest moments reveal the biggest truths. One quiet act of injustice can expose an entire system, but one act of courage can heal it. If Vanessa's story moved you, let it remind you that accountability doesn't destroy. It rebuilds. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it transforms it. If you believe in stories that challenge, heal, and inspire, make sure to subscribe and share this video, because the next story might just be the one that changes you.